red, orange, and yellow. But the actual lockdown was lifted around 10 days back, but the color code are still maintained. Yeah.
So yeah, we just share each other a moment ago what we really want from our discussions, and then I just briefly told Dr. Mnivan about the trend of e-commerce globally and also in Cambodia. We can see that there is increased trends, but because of the lockdown, like we just said a moment ago, many issue happening, especially for delivery. And then what can be done if we have those kind of issues? And then we can generate generate a solution from our discussion. What could be the possible solutions if lockdown still exists, or if lockdown is already released? So what can be done to make sure that logistically can be well structured, and who should be part of it? And also, what is the role of digitalizations, because we are now living in a digital world, and how people transform themselves. Yeah, so this is the question that we discussed a moment ago, and hope we can get some questions and comments from our audiences too.
That's good.
Yeah.
Who will start first? I think Dr. Chinwan.
Yeah, I will invite Dr. Chinwan to open the floor and give speech what is AVI, and then we can also discuss together, Dr. Wanrat, because you have been doing many things recently. So then even you are not a practitioner, but you are a thinker from the think tank. So you have a lot of experience from different industries. So then your input would be much appreciated too. In case my internet connection is cut off, so maybe you can also take a floor one that to make sure that our discussion is going on smoothly. So we still have 2 more minutes, so then we can start. We also have our participant in our room as well. Now we have attendee 15 people. So we will give them 30 minutes to ask our panelists, or they can also have some comments or any proposal for our panelists or to relevant stakeholder. Normally, what we do, we always have some recommendation at the end, or messages at the end of our call, and then we can pass all those recommendations to relevant partners. It can be policy maker, business community, or development partner, because Sven, he's from both sides, from the public sector and also from the development partner. So then we can share those input to different players. So is it clear, or you have something to ask to clarify? Yeah, so now it's time, and then we also have our events live on Facebook. Yeah, first of all, I would like to welcome everyone and welcome our panelists. Today's session is talking about e-commerce and logistics during COVID-19. Today event is set up by having our panelists from different industries. So we have our panelists from private sector, we have our panelists from think tank, from public sector, and from development partner. So this event happened because of the collaboration between VMall, it's an e-commerce for women locally made products, Momentum, and AVI. As you already know, nowadays e-commerce globally reach, I mean, they can earn 4.9 trillion US dollars. And then when we look at Cambodia e-commerce market, so it projected to be increased up to 222 millions in 2021, and it can be jumped to 313 millions by 2025. So based on the number that we found, there's increased trend in e-commerce. So this is the reason why we organize this event, and then we hope to get insightful discussion from our panelists. So first of all, I would like to invite Dr. Chiang Vanrat to give a speech, open remark about our events. The floor is yours, Doctor.
Thank you, Ms. Suchita. On behalf of the co-organizing committees, Momentum, VMall, and the Asian Vision Institute, I would like to welcome and extend my sincere gratitude to our distinguished panelists. First, Ms. Annie Matthews, she's the Director of Developer Relation, Microsoft Asia Pacific. She's talking to us from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia now. Mr. Sven Alabout, he's the lead advisor, Australia DFAT Commerce, Trade. He's based in Phnom Penh now. And last but not least, Dr. Monivan Tan, he is the president of the Cambodia E-Commerce Association. And myself is the president of the Asian Vision Institute. As Suchita mentioned earlier, that COVID-19 has accelerated digitalization, e-commerce, and in connecting to this, we also see the quite significant development in logistics sector, because e-commerce and logistics are the two wheels of the bike. You cannot have e-commerce without the development of logistics. So that is the topic of today, the connection between the e-commerce and logistics, and how the COVID-19 accelerate this process. I have done some research a few years ago on logistics in Cambodia and e-commerce in Cambodia last year. So some of the key finding here when it comes to logistics sector is that Cambodia still have relatively high cost in terms of logistics. Look at the shipping industry, transport cost. So this is the challenge of Cambodian exporters because of this high logistic costs compared with Vietnam and Thailand. And one of the ways to resolve these logistic bottlenecks is to have this more of enhanced partnership between the public and private sectors, because you need to develop both the hardware and the software. Now I think the Phnom Penh and Sihanouk Vale Expressway is being constructed. I think in the next few years, perhaps the shipping cost, transportation costs will be reduced because we have more better hardware, road connectivity, and of course the airport infrastructure. And in the future also, perhaps we have more rail connectivity. Now we have a rail connection between Cambodia, Phnom Penh, and Thailand. But in the future, if you have one more rail connection between Phnom Penh with Ho Chi Minh City, then it will help to generate more of this logistic connectivity. And also recently, with the cooperation with Singapore, Phnom Penh logistic complex is being built, and this will help transform Cambodia into a logistic hub, at least in the Mekong region. So the investment from the public and private sector here play a critical role to reduce the cost of transportation and logistics in Cambodia. Now, looking at the e-commerce, Suchita, she's the founder of VMall as well. I think she understands very well the situation of e-commerce in Cambodia. It's still at a nascent stage when talking about e-commerce in Cambodia, because we don't have a strong ecosystem to support the e-commerce in Cambodia yet, especially when it comes to digital literacy, supply, how to connect the suppliers, for instance, into a hub connectivity. So that is a challenge. Second is e-payment system. Even though it's quite remarkable progress in fintech in Cambodia and e-payment, but I think the people trust in the e-payment system very low. That relate to the social behavior. So I think it needs a whole of society approach, a whole of government and whole of society approach to build ecosystem to promote e-commerce in Cambodia, especially digital literacy and people trust in the e-commerce system. And relating to trust, what we found through my research is that the lack of a protection mechanism, data privacy protection, regulations, regulatory regime in order to protect the interests of consumer. So that is something I think the Cambodian government and several other governments in Southeast Asia need to develop is a regulatory regime. And next step is to harmonize all this regulatory regime in order to have a seamless cross-border digital trade across Southeast Asia. And the first ASEAN minister meeting, digital minister meeting, took place early this year, which is a positive step toward digital integration and connectivity in ASEAN. So down the road, I believe that the logistics and e-commerce will be the key driving force in the post-pandemic socio-economic recovery. But we need to ensure that no one is left behind. So that's why we need to promote inclusive digital transformation. We need to put more efforts in the women empowerment and entrepreneurship and digital literacy. So because if we don't manage this digital transformation, well, it may lead to inequalities, development gaps, rural, urban, and between men and women. So I would like to end my remarks here and looking forward to our interactive dialogue and discussion. Thank you very much. Suchita, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Vanrat, for your highlighting the recent research that you just shared with us. Is very insightful information to our forum discussions. And I would like also invite Dr. Tan Miniwan to introduce yourself, because I know that you have many positions, many roles to play. But today discussion, I would like you to brief more about your new established association. It's called Cambodian E-Business Association. Why it is set up, and what is the role of the association as the president? Please, the floor is yours, Dr. Miniwan.
Yeah, thank you, Suchita. And good afternoon, Dr. Cheng Vanrat. Good afternoon, Annie Masru, and good afternoon, Sven Salavot, and all participants to join with our workshop this afternoon. Let's introduce, maybe take 1 minute to introduce my background. Actually, besides I'm the president of Cambodia E-commerce Association, and so is the vice president of Cambodia Chamber of Commerce, and so senior advisor with Housing Developer Association, and so is the president of Cambodia Automotive Industry Federation in Cambodia as well. So is the secretary of CCA, Cambodia Contractor Association, and also I involved with many associates in Cambodia, like the young associate, you know, and then women associate. I think maybe around more than 10 associates in Cambodia. It's my it's my experience, you know. Okay, you know, as I'm the vice president of CA, you know, Cambodia e-commerce associate, you know. I think we create the new team, you know. We're gonna to talk more about digital and e-commerce in Cambodia as well. You know, I think as we know, you know, Cambodia government, they set up the new platform and then the new strategy to transform Cambodia from the government, like we can say like the currently government to the digital government in 2040, you know. Yeah, that's why I think in the new minister of PTC as well, you know, they very commit, you know, to transform Cambodia to e-government in Cambodia as well, because they come out with the new regulation to transform Cambodian government. For example, like they set up the team to apply for all digital in Cambodia. For example, like Dr. Chin Vandat said, you know, I think infrastructure digital as well, and financial digital as well, and also travel digital, also digital tourism digital as well, you know. And according to the World Bank perspective, I think Cambodia must be apply digital before 2030. You see a bit gap different between perspective from World Bank and also the strategy from the Cambodian government. Anyway, you see, and Cambodia, but I believe that, you know, Cambodia very fast to transform technology to apply in Cambodia. You see, like industry 4.4, Cambodia, we know, you know, I think we cannot apply on time, but anyway, I think all the inter-ministry, they very interesting to apply industry 4.0 in Cambodia, and especially financial transformation in Cambodia as well, you know. Yeah, beside this, you see, I see the a bit obstacle between digitalization in Cambodia. I think between gap and how to integrate between government and private sector, because I think maybe some part we're looking for the private sector is moving ahead to the government, but some industry, I think maybe also they move ahead from the private sector as well. According to the 19 COVID in Cambodia, you see, e-commerce very effective in Cambodia, but because Cambodia, we have a lot of young generation, they can apply for new digital in Cambodia, but the problem, they only know how to use digitalization, but they cannot make benefit from digitalization, you know, is a problem. Also, some regulation I think is good, you know, in paperwork, you know, but we need more educate to the customer and so to the vendor as well. We need more educate for them, because I think maybe for my perspective, law and regulation to become first, you know, before we apply all digital in Cambodia. But Cambodia, I think maybe the young generation, they moving very fast. They move to the digital and then ahead than the law and the regulation. Anyway, you know, another thing, I think maybe Cambodian government also, they very careful about cybercrime data, different their protection as well, you know, because as we know, you see, that's why YouTube, you know, YouTube, Facebook, very popular in Cambodia. You see some ban from the YouTube company and also Facebook, because I think subscriber in Cambodia, they use, I think, a bit messy, you know. I think they don't know in deep about the regulation and law of YouTube regulation. That's why YouTube banned Cambodia subscriber a lot of, and also Facebook also they ban many things in Cambodia, because they only how to use the digital life, but they don't know how to benefit and also support to YouTube channel and support efficiency to the digital company as well, you know. Yeah, besides this, you know, I think maybe, I hope, you know, the young generation, they can apply very fast, you know, according to the world economic digitalize, improve, I think every day, every month, you know. Cambodia, I think I hope they move very fast, but a bit abstract, you know. I can say the obstacle for the digital apply in Cambodia, mostly you see all the company, especially I think the holding company, we can say the big company, still hold by the first generation. That's why the first generation, they don't want to change their mindset to use, I think, new technology. But for the new generation, they really to apply for the new digital technology as well. But I think we see the gap between the second generation and the first generation. They cannot mix up sometime, That's why I think maybe a bit abstract for apply digitalization in Cambodia. Let I share something like this. If I think maybe I hope friends or maybe any you can share something, and then I can sharing another perspective, and then can answer to the question if participants have something to concern about the digitalization in Cambodia and also e-commerce in Cambodia as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nan, for your introduction. And then I would like to invite Ms. Annie Machusis, the Director Developer Relations of Microsoft based in Asia Pacific. So the floor is yours, Annie. You can introduce yourself and your program.
Thanks, Sucheta. So I lead developer relations across Asia Pacific, and one of the fundamental things we work towards is to empower people with technology. And it was great to hear Dr. Tan and Dr. Chang as well set the context for Cambodia and how to grow fast in this space of retail and logistics as well. So we know that in the last year, probably in the beginning, the first 90 days of COVID itself, people completely had to change behavior, especially in retail. And probably 9 years worth of digital transformation just crashed into those 90 days, if you will. Mm-hmm. So in fact, a lot of the dynamics of the retail and logistics industry also changed during that time. For example, earlier, digital and media was a way to outreach to customers and build awareness, but the selling was happening through the stores. And suddenly that inverted, and the selling and purchase happened through online, and stores were an extended medium channel or medium for people to come in and see what's going on when they could and when they couldn't. So what we saw is that the ones who actually were able to respond faster were the ones who had built capability on technology. So digital transformation has been long coming, but digital transformation is not just about technology. So the way we think about it at Microsoft, and when we work with our customers and partners, we think about digital transformation as being pinned on a cultural change. And I hear from earlier Dr. Tan's message as well about how the first generation and the second or third generations and the cultural change has yet not kicked in. And I think that's imperative for a digital transformation for a country or a company or even a person to happen. And now, why is that so? So when you look at digital transformation, earlier there used to be 3 elements: people, process, and technology. But today there are actually 4 elements: people, process, technology, and data. And data is flowing all around, but if you're not able to analyze and gather insights from the data, it's useless. So retail companies, I'll talk about 2 retail companies which did some amazing stuff. One is ASOS, which is into women's fashion. And they found that they took their purchasing online. Yes, they had online store, but the number of returns they were getting were massive because people were buying, finding that it's not fitting or it's not looking good, and they were returning. So it was, so clearly they had to innovate at that point. They had been working on an augmented reality application earlier called See My Fit. They very quickly brought it out to the customer. So now they could post a picture, see how it fit on them, and then make a purchase. And it drastically reduced the returns. And you know how that impacts the bottom line as well, right? So that was one of rapid experimentation that was a culture beforehand. So they could bring it on at the right time. Another one was Myntra, which is a fashion retailer again. So in the fashion space, you have twice a year, winter season and summer season. But suddenly they started putting out fashion seasons every month. And that was basically collecting data on what do people really need now. So if you're in a Zoom call like this, I need to be formal on top, but at the bottom I can have pajamas, it doesn't matter. And the buying decisions changed. And how do you find out all this and how do you respond quickly? And that makes you the winner or the loser in the whole game. And that's based on data collected both from purchases, from online bots, and things like that. So this amazing role that data has to play, especially when we are in situations like this, when the normal is not the norm, it's not business as usual, really. You have to quickly figure which stores to keep on, what products to buy, know real-time logistics, know your supplies in store, online, all of that, and data becomes very, very critical in that. And when data becomes critical, so does security. The whole privacy security angle also becomes critical. Now, if you look at all this in the context of digital transformation and the cultural change that is needed, I would say that we will need to focus on three things. One is, of course, about skilling at a broad level, digital literacy level. Thankfully, today there is skilling available more than just deep tech. There are no code, low code stuff. We have Power Platform for that. So you may know nothing about coding, but you can create a mobile application in a day or in 2 days. And that expands your capacity to modernize and to digitize. And then, of course, tech intensity. So we have to build deep tech capabilities and skills in Cambodia. And then the borders are open, the world is flat. So sitting in Cambodia, you can serve the world. But you need to build those deep, strong technical talent in the country. The second one is about communities. So these days, learning and growing really happens in communities. Nobody's sitting in a classroom and learning. So are there these tech communities around? And these tech communities are around the globe. So you can join anywhere in the globe. But it makes sense to build those communities for Cambodia, in Cambodia. It might be local, and then invite folks from other regions to come. So there's a cross-learning happening. So, and the third one is about driving innovation purposefully. So government and the public-private partnership becomes super important in making sure there are plenty of hackathons and innovation avenues to actually help the youngsters build this, because retail is going to be disrupted just like any other industry. And that's just as the cusp. So let's drive that innovation and disruption forward. So that's my take on the topic.
Yes, thank you, Annie. Actually, you have a lot of experience, not just only experience in Microsoft company, but experience also in technology back to India. So maybe along the way, you can also share more experience about building community in digital transformations. And also, I would like to invite Sven Kablo. He's the lead advisor of Purposefully. So, Sven, the floor here, you can introduce yourself and the program that you are working on at the moment, please.
All right. Thank you, Suchita, and good afternoon to participants. My respect to my fellow panelists. So yes, I'm Sven Kalabo. I'm based here in Phnom Penh. I've been living in Phnom Penh for 17 years. And I hold different hats. I'm an advisor at the Ministry of Commerce here. I work also for the on different initiatives by UNDP and the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade on promoting e-commerce adoption in Cambodia. And I'm also advising different governments in the region, Myanmar until recently, and other in the South Pacific on e-commerce adoption. So the first part of this discussion, I think, is about e-commerce and e-commerce in Cambodia. So I will focus on this right now, and maybe we'll talk later on logistics, if you don't mind. So what we've seen in the past, I would say, a year and a half in Cambodia is a formidable, fantastic acceleration of e-commerce but also more broadly, digital readiness. All of us have been using more and more Zoom. We've been using app to get our food products, our groceries, our restaurants, etc. So this has increased the readiness of what e-commerce is in Cambodia. I would say we gained 2 or 3 years of readiness in a year, because merchants, vendors, but also marketplaces, but also governments, development partners have all seen this move, this transition from offline to online for merchants, for sellers, and for buyers. Whether this is sustainable, whether would this outlive the current pandemic, I don't know. And the fellow panelists have mentioned a number of pillars that are needed for Cambodia to actually benefit from this and build on this to make sure that after the pandemic, we continue this move towards doing everything online. So this is the positive side of it. However, when we look at what happened in Cambodia, especially in the last few months or even few weeks, you have a lot of businesses that realize that they will not be able to sell at all because everything was closed. If you are not an essential business, you had to close your shop. So a lot of businesses say, well, one way for me to survive, not to close shop, not to fire my employees, is to move online. And suddenly everybody wants to move online, and all the marketplaces want merchants to sell on their marketplaces. And we saw that that's not that simple. It's not going to happen overnight. That you move from offline to online, that you have the right backend software, you choose the right platform to sell your product. And why is that? It's because the ecosystem in Cambodia is basically, it has 4 different pillars. You need to have, at the firm level, you need to have the skills, and my fellow panelists really emphasize that. You need to have the skills, the skill set to be able to move from offline to online, to be able to use digital payments solutions, to understand how to serve your customers, etc. So at the firm level, you need to have this in place. Then you need what we call the meso system, something like Dr. Monivan is doing with the e-business association. You need to have providers, association, incubators that are going to help the businesses understand what is e-commerce, understand how you move from offline to online, how you comply with laws, how you integrate payment solutions. You need those incubators, you need those boosters, these incubators, to help you make the transition. But that's not enough. You also need to have the laws and regulation in place so that e-commerce can actually benefit everyone, but can also, and it might be controversial, but generate some revenue for the government, right? So there is a whole lot of laws and regulation that Cambodia has passed or need to pass in order for e-commerce to flourish and for investors to come to Cambodia. So when investors come to ASEAN and say, where I'm going to put my money, they look at Cambodia, small market, small population, but very open regime, open trade, open economy. So we need to have in place the laws and regulation that will attract the investors. And when you talk about laws and regulation, we talk about data server localization, capability to cross-border data flow, electronic signature, electronic documents, and as we've heard recently, as a new law was passed in Cambodia, digital taxation, very important issue. And finally, the 4th component of the ecosystem is the international dimension. Cambodia has made a lot of commitments on e-commerce in ASEAN for the e-commerce agreement, in RCEP with the dialogue partners, and is about to make a lot of commitments at the WTO on the Joint Statement Initiative on e-commerce. And all those commitments have to be delivered, have to be implemented in Cambodia. And that has a bearing on the way the sector is going to develop. So I think when we look at Cambodia, of course, I agree with Dr. Van Reet, it's still a nascent business. And Sochita, you gave the figures of the growth. But if you compare to other economies, and I'm advising other economies in the region, Cambodia is not too bad. We have more than 20 fintech. Look at the rate of electronic payment adoption. We have a lot of different marketplaces. Of course, most of the e-commerce in Cambodia is actually social commerce. It's so selling on YouTube, selling on Facebook, and this is mostly informal. So there are a lot of pockets of growth of e-commerce in Cambodia. And obviously logistics is one of them. And I'll be happy to take you through some of the findings we have gathered on e-commerce logistics later on. So this is as a way of background. I'm very upbeat on e-commerce in Cambodia, but there are a lot of these SMEs that are not registered, the small pop and mop shop, the small MSMEs that would like to move online, that would like to sell online, but don't know how to do it. So question mark on the future for them. Thank you, Sochita.
Thank you, Sven, for your meaningful information and highlighting the important e-commerce trend in Cambodia. And also there are some progress and also some stumbling block that we need to get address. So my first question, I think this discussion, we will have a 1 hour discussion, and then we will keep 30 minutes for Q&A to our participants in the room and also from the Facebook Live. So my first question to Dr. Mnivan, because he's the president of new e-business association. So what can you see the e-commerce trend in Cambodia? Because you already touched something from the beginning, but I really want to have a specific viewpoint, your viewpoint. What can you see the trend of e-commerce? Dr. Mnivan, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sochita, again. And then I support, I think the rest are from the Dr. Chinwan that I saw from Sven, also from Annie as well, I think. Our CEA, that's why we create this association, to support digital company in Cambodia, because I think maybe right now Cambodia government, they very open, I think, to welcome from the private sector and then get input, we can sharing between PPP framework, to moving forward for digitalization, You see, like the IDP 2015 and 25 also support a lot of the new startup, especially involved with the digital company as well, Yeah, but in this regard, I think as we raised up just now, I think maybe law and regulation a bit, I think maybe very new, we need to educate the vendor, we need to educate the young generation how to comply, I think regulation as well, But I hope, our CA, we can negotiate between private sector, I think, or any sector to use digitalization to apply, and then we can talk, and then we can negotiate with government as well. Last 2 weeks, I have a meeting on behalf of HDAC, Housing Developer Association in Cambodia. I think the new minister said, they very commit, they very improve. Especially, I think the e-government all stakeholder from the government, because they build a new platform and then they set up the new system to the inter-ministry as well. It's supported by MPTC as well. And also, I think maybe a bit. I think we have to thinking together. As Dr. Chinwan said, I think maybe you see. The cost of logistics very high, you compare to ASEAN countries. You see, they take the fee 30% of core goods sold. See how much it's a big problem. We need support. I think for me, I think government should be control. I think the fee from the logistics company as well. And also the obstacle for us, I think maybe the payment gateway also. I think a bit complicated. Like any state, I think when we order, I think some good or any product from online, you see, very complicated, very massive about delivery online, because mostly they get by COD, cash on delivery, We cannot just, I think, very smooth for the payment gateway. And then I used to buy some product. Sometimes I think we are ranking, I think several times, I think the goods still not delivering to our home as well, Very complicated, I think maybe, yeah. And also our CEA, Cambodia E-commerce Associate Cambodia, I gonna to improve a lot of about digitalize to work with government, but unluckily, I think COVID it comes at the same time we create the association, But anyway, I think I hope very soon, after the COVID is better, I think we try to talk to the the ministry, especially Ministry of MOC as well. I think in the ministry as well, I think maybe we need to support from them, and then we need to educate from them as well. And so our associate, I think we will educate our member as well about the new regulation from the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nivan, for your insightful explanation. So I would like to know from Annie as well, because you have many experience, not just only in India, but also in Malaysia or in other countries. So if you make comparisons about the trend of e-commerce in each country, so what can you share your own observations?
Yeah, thanks, Sacheta. So for e-commerce organizations, the core piece for them, they were scrambling initially to find out where should they focus the business on, which stores, which locations, which products, and how do they build that trusted customer experience with trust both in the store because of the whole COVID related stuff, as well as online. When it is completely online, it's about privacy and security there. So it was all about those two things initially, and of course reducing cost is a big part of it. So it's about, so from my experience, what I saw was that retailers were very quickly able to actually counter this. For example, one of the retailers out in Sri Lanka, it's a fairly large brand, but it had a legacy application on e-commerce up there. But very quickly into the first month, they figured that, what used to be like 100 hits in a day probably suddenly went up to 1,000 hits in a day and just crashed. So it was about taking that decision to very quickly modernize the application. So one would think it's almost counterintuitive that you do not invest when, in times of trouble. But Bain and Company, for example, has done significant research on companies' behaviors during recession. This is not a recession, but it is recession-like because of the whole situation. And their research showed that the decisions at the companies which were winners in their term were making were very different from the decision that the non-winners were making. And the difference during the recession, if it was 10%, in 5 years' time, it quickly escalated into a 70% difference between these types of companies. And what were these winning companies really doing? And is that something behavior that we have seen across the board, whether it's e-commerce or the others, a difference in thought process and behavior between the companies that are equipping themselves. So while they're responding to the current need and all of that, they had kind of innovation teams. For example, some of the e-commerce ones, and I can't name them, but a huge e-commerce company has 60 innovation projects running concurrently at this point. That was never the case before. So that's the behavioral difference that is needed. The ability to say that, okay, for today we need to do X, Y, and Z, but in parallel have a team and project teams working on what's it for day after tomorrow. It's not even enough for tomorrow. So the ability to understand for day after tomorrow, what's the capacity and capability I need to build. And this cuts across apps. Maybe it's about a bot for your website, which is not a big project, but it's going to change the experience for your customer. And if you are able to gather insights from the data that derives and then loop it back in, that differentiates you definitely. In the logistics and supply side, it could be IoT. And especially in the logistics, if you're talking about building trust, it could be blockchain. So these are all newer emerging technologies, and that's good for smaller economies because no one is actually the winner or the leader in all these spaces. These are all emerging economies. So you have an equal opportunity at this point. Anyone has an equal opportunity to actually leverage those technologies and move far, far, far forward. Of course, country regulations will come into play, which is why that whole feedback loop between private and public matters. But we have seen these things happen very fast. Healthcare is a great example. It's a hugely regulated industry, very laggard in terms of digital transformation. But what happened in the last year? Telemedicine was the only hope. So that's retail in healthcare. And telemedicine regulations came into play in 3 months or 6 months in countries across. India, of course, did that in about 5 months, 5 to 6 months. Malaysia brought it on forward. Almost every country did, right? And in such a hard regulated industry, if you can make that change, governments made that change because there was no other way, then it's possible. So it's just a question of the will of the government to take that opportunity, take feedback, and move forward, and then create that ecosystem that will allow companies, people, startups, all of them to innovate and grow. So yeah, great examples I've seen across Asia Pacific, and I'm sure Cambodia has some stories to say as well.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I also would like Sven to share experience, because Annie also share some good experience from other country, and then I know that Sven also work in different country. So he spent a lot of time in Cambodia, Myanmar, Tonga, and in Australia. So what is the opportunity and challenges of e-commerce in each country? And maybe you can pick up one or two to share with our panelists and as well as our participant here. Sven.
Yeah, thank you, Suchita. Yeah, well, I think the pandemic has just increased the drive to move online, and everybody's trying to figure out how, in my situation, as a small business, as a big business, as a one-person business, as a women-owned business, how do I take advantage of everything I see? I see my kids learning online. I see my mother being cured online or treated online. I see my husband on Zoom negotiating. So how do I, as a business, move online? And depending on the country, you have different support mechanisms for that. In some countries, you can be guided, you can be helped, you can get subsidies, etc., which is not always the case in developing countries. In Cambodia, we have been fortunate to have access to a large number of programs for women entrepreneurs, and Women is one of them. She Enterprises, Khmer Enterprises, Sisters of Code. We have a lot of different programs, but they are targeting, I would say, more or less the same segment of population. But the bigger segments, the MSMEs that are not formalized, that are in the provinces, they are not tackled. So what we saw in other markets, what I observe in other markets is a kind of trying to catch up with the ecosystem, to build an ecosystem that was not in place. Because people were saying, well, it's I have time to adjust, to digitize, to digitalize. The government does not have any e-commerce law or strategy, so why do I do that? But what we saw in the Pacific and in the region, in Myanmar as well, in Cambodia, government taking the lead in having the policy and regulatory framework in place. Like you look at Cambodia, we now have an e-commerce law, we have an e-commerce strategy, we have implementations, sub-decrees for the laws, we have online registrations, so we have the mechanism in place. Are they being used? That's something that we can discuss in a different workshop. So I think to answer, to have a short answer to your question, Suchita, I think everybody is trying to benefit from this acceleration of digital innovation and digital commerce. How do you succeed in that? Well, you need to have the right ecosystem in place, and logistics is part of the ecosystem. Skills is part of the ecosystem. Electronic payment is part of the ecosystem. Access to finance for MSMEs is part of the ecosystem. Trading across border is part of the ecosystem. And of course, different countries go at a different time. We are lucky in Cambodia that we are in ASEAN, and ASEAN has set a number of rules and regulations and vision for e-commerce to develop. So we can benefit from this. If Singapore and Malaysia and Philippines and Vietnam are already adopting these, we can learn from them, we can adopt them, and we can also benefit from their experience. And you see more and more investors coming to Cambodia or to the region because they've heard that this is a very dynamic region where things are possible, the ecosystems are in place. So this is what we have observed. Whether this will continue in the coming weeks or months, or whether this will accelerate, I'm not sure. You know, I'm worried that when the pandemic is over, hopefully it will be over soon, then we go back to normal and we forget about this transition online. But we have so much to gain in moving online, in reducing the handling of cash, like the National Bank of Cambodia is trying to promote, for instance, to promote green logistics, to promote new skills. Instead of training engineers, network engineers, we have to train app developer, content developer, digital marketing expert. So we had this opportunity to change things, you know, and I think Dr. Van Arit in his opening remark, highlighted that we have the possibility to change. Do we want to go to business as usual and lose this readiness that we've gained, or do we want to take advantage of that? So I think Cambodia is well placed to take advantage if we continue to have this healthy dialogue between public and private sector, and if we can also continue to benefit from these programs and initiatives I was mentioning at the beginning that help businesses to succeed in their online transition, but not only to be online, but also to succeed online, meaning to sell online. We've seen during the pandemic a lot of businesses moving online and say, oh, I move online, I have no sales, you know. But being online is just like being listed on a catalog, and you have to make the difference with your competitors. So we have to continue investing in that. So that's, I think, what would make the difference between the countries that will benefit from e-commerce and those that will be left behind.
Okay, Sven, thanks for your sharing. I also want to know more from Dr. Van Arit, because he also now in Singapore, and we already know that Singapore is the regional hub, and then they have a good low-stake arrangements. And then I would like you to share a little bit what is the difference between Cambodia and Singapore low-stake structure. The floor is yours, Dr. Van Arit.
Thank you, Sujita. Yes, here in Singapore, I think the logistics sector and services is far advanced than Cambodia and many other countries in Southeast Asia. In terms of delivery service, very efficient and very effective. This kind of services, and I think recently also they also have a drone delivery services. It's still in the experimenting phase, but I think the drone delivery system, especially for strategic goods like vaccine, for instance, would be very critical for developing countries. So this is you know, in terms of innovation, technical innovation, e-commerce, and logistics here in Singapore very advanced, and all the big tech companies have their headquarters here in Singapore. I think TikTok is going to have its own headquarters here in Singapore. Of course, Grab company headquarters here in Singapore, and Grab in terms of logistic delivery, Grab is quite progressing in advanced in the region. But one of the case in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, there's a one e-commerce company that together with logistics, which we could defeat like Alibaba and Grab, which is amazing. It's a locally grown Vietnamese company. So that I think some country like Cambodia can leapfrog and catch up with the more advanced e-commerce economy like Singapore. So long as they have innovative ideas and because they understand the local markets better, the local mindset. So that is something that we of course we can learn from each other, but I think each country have its own unique in terms of market consumer expectation and market landscape.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Van Rep. I also seriously want to know about the challenges of logistics. So, what is the main challenges of logistics industry in Cambodia, and what should be done to make sure that it can be comparable to other countries like we just mentioned in Singapore, in Malaysia, in other countries in Asia Pacific. So what are the challenge of logistics in our country? Can I request Sven to share your idea about this?
Yeah, thank you, Sochita. I think logistics is a very complex topic, and e-commerce logistics even more so. The first thing is, I think I'm not Cambodian, but I think even the word logistics in Khmer is more related to military supply rather than actual logistics as we understand it. If you look at what the NPWT, the Ministry of Public Works and Transport, has done in terms of having this wonderful master plan on logistics, you see the part dedicated to urban logistics, last mile and first mile delivery is very, very small, right? So when we talk about logistics, we have to differentiate between the domestic logistics, like the last mile and first mile, and the cross-border logistics. In Cambodia, contrary to other markets, you know, when you look at other more developed markets, the post office, the postal network, is the driver of e-commerce. In Europe, for instance, 70% of the delivery of small parcel and packing is done through postal offices, postal services. In Cambodia, we know it's not the case. In Cambodia, it's mostly third-party logistic providers, or it's just you putting your goods on the taxi that go to Siem Reap, and then somebody in Siem Reap will go and pick up. And it's very cheap, very efficient, but it's not well structured. So if we look at, for instance, what happened during the pandemic, you know, we had all this lockdown in Phnom Penh, and we were told that the delivery services, the company like Nyam Pegun and other could deliver, but they had a lot of difficulties to go across the different zone to find the right person because they could not go to the address. So during the pandemic and the lockdown, we realized how important it is to have a very structured logistics ecosystem for e-commerce. And we still have a lot of progress to make in Cambodia. Just give you a few examples. The first one is green logistics. Some of the companies in Cambodia, like Juniac or Mill Temple, they try to use electric bikes to deliver. Now with Tada, we have new electric tuk-tuk. You know? So we see that e-commerce is growing so much in Cambodia, but are we taking the right decision in terms of protecting the environment, making sure that we adopt tools or technology that reduce the impact on the climate and also on the quality of the air, for instance, in Phnom Penh? Second, do we have curriculum for logistics in Cambodia? No, we don't have. The NPWT is starting to create logistic professionals, but up to very recently, we didn't have that. Either you are in transport or you're on storage, but what happened in the meantime is left to the minivan, etc. So we have room to improve that. And finally, and I see here we have in the participants somebody from the Postal Union, from the Universal Postal Union. We have some issue of physical addressing in Cambodia. If we want to get our goods delivered, our e-commerce orders delivered in Cambodia, it's very difficult to find an address because we don't have postcode, we don't have addresses. So if you're in Phnom Penh, like in Don Pen or in Bang Kong, in Ton Topong, it's okay. But outside the urban area, it's very difficult to deliver. You say, well, I live 2 blocks from the pagoda and 3 blocks from the school, and you will find me there. So if we want really to improve how logistics is done in Cambodia, we have to think in terms of this physical addressing system. Do we use private software, private company, for instance, Grab? They know exactly who is who, where is where. So because they have your address, they have your pinpoint, etc. But what they use is their own property. They're not going to give it to Cambodia Post. They're not going to give it to the Ministry of or NPTC. So when we think logistics, we have to think all these different aspects, the green logistics, the training of the drivers, but also the training of the supply chain of people who will organize the delivery in Phnom Penh. We have to think physical addressing system, and we have to think what we do with Cambodia's Post. Cambodia Post has integrated a number of readiness tools like operational readiness for e-commerce, digital readiness for e-commerce. So we have these tools in Cambodia called Cambodia Post. Why don't we use it to lessen the cost of logistics? And one final point, which I think is not really well understood in Cambodia, it's you see a lot of platforms. I'm not sure about Wemo that say logistics or delivery is free. Logistics for delivery is free. You don't pay anything as a consumer. But actually, logistics is not free. You know, in the mind of the consumer, they say, "Oh, why you charge me for transport and logistics? Because this platform say it's free." Actually, it's not free. It has a cost. Logistics has a cost, and we need, as marketplaces, we need to invest in a logistics ecosystem, a logistic platform to be able to deliver fast and securely to your place. So all these instruments are being developed, the green logistics, the training, the cost of logistics, and we have to continue investing in that. And hopefully the big players that we see in town will continue to work together, and with the e-business association, for instance, to make sure that we all understand that logistics is not just transport. Logistics is a lot of different aspects. Thank you, Sachin.
Yes, thank you, Sven. You mentioned about first mile delivery, last mile delivery, and cross-border delivery. And then I'm also interested in cross-border delivery, or let's say cross-border logistics, because Dr. Mnivan also in agriculture, and then he worked a lot with export agri product to other countries. So what can you see the cross-border logistics in Cambodia comparing to neighboring countries like Vietnam, Thailand, or Malaysia?
Are you asking me or are you asking
Dr. Mnivan? Yes, sorry, I passed this question to Dr. Mnivan because he worked a lot with export, and he also the vice president of Cambodian Chamber of Commerce, and he worked a lot with trading. Sorry.
Thank you, Sachita, again. You know, I think change out about the panelists share thing, you know, in this finally, you know, and also, like I said, because I'm also the vice co-chair with the agriculture sector and with the Minister of MAF, you know, Minister of Agriculture. So I is a vice co-chair with the General Custom Department. Also, you know, we talk about a lot of digitalization. You can say like a Sigora system in Cambodia. So the vice co-chair between Prefecture and General Tax Department as well. You know, we talk about forms and also e-tax service as well. You know, yeah. Okay, a good question. You know, I think maybe right now we can say I think maybe it's not moving too smooth about the digitalization about infrastructure between cross border between Cambodia and neighbor country. You know, because AM is one of the core point in the Japan Mekong, and also in the focal point with the Korean Mekong, we talk a lot of infrastructure facilitate digitalization in Cambodia. You know, I think in the Zen platform we try to talk more about the transformation technology, and also I think training about the digitalization to the counterpart country as well. You know, but Cambodia a bit facing problem, because I think maybe if we talk about the digital, we not only focus on the system. I think maybe system, I think Cambodia is not workable right now. That's why Cambodia government they set at the target, you know, set target to apply digitalize relevant to the relevant departments as well. You know, also divider also very important. I think Cambodia, I think we know, I think divider also very important, because also humans, we need human digital as well. You know. But Cambodia, I think two things is obstacle for us. No, I think we can say in general, I think will be a bit obstacle. You know, system also maybe it's not one data, because you see Cambodia not yet, we can say not yet open data in Cambodia. That's why I think it's not easy for us to integrate. I think between private sector to the government. But I appreciate, I think the custom department, I think they try to apply for the AC quota system in Cambodia, because in ASEAN we use a AC quota form, I think we use form E, form D in ASEAN, I think work very well, And also the tax, I think tax department also they apply very benefit solely about the tax declaration. I think they use all electronic declaration tax as well, But as I raised up just now, I think maybe we need more PPP framework, and also we need open data between, I think, stakeholders in Cambodia. Especially, I think government should be open data between government department, also the private sector. I think is what we need right now. Yeah, I hope, I think maybe after the COVID pandemic, I think maybe CA, I think we have a chance to talk with them, I think, and then hope we can work together in soon. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mnivan, because we are now past 1 hour, and then the floor is now for our participant to ask a question to our panelists. So in the chat box, we have 4 questions, but 1 question already answered by Sven. So I will pick up one question from Peter Bachner. He asked, what is the current status of e-commerce law with the royal government of Cambodia? I think Sven knows well about e-commerce law. So Sven, would you mind to answer these questions, please?
Yeah. And this question reveals that there's a lack of information on what is available in Cambodia, because the e-commerce law was signed by His Majesty the King in November 2019. So it's been passed already by the National Assembly, signed, and then there are a number of sub-decrees that have been passed to implement this law, like on the status of e-commerce operators, on their registrations. So the law is in place. And this was a commitment that Cambodia made in ASEAN, and Cambodia fulfilled its commitment. Not all countries in the region have an e-commerce law. Cambodia has one. It's not perfect because it took a lot of time to develop, but it fits the purpose.
Yes, so there are a lot of progress, as I learned from Sven, as well as from other players in the country. So a lot of progress in relation to e-commerce law. And we also have the e-commerce strategy just recently approved by the Ministry of Commerce too. So from the government side, there are many progress, and from the private side, there are some progress as well. So then I would like to pick up another question from our participants. This question is to Dr. Mnivan. Mentioned that the growth of digital solution uneven between the public and private sector. May I ask, what are some examples of the private sector growing ahead of the public sector, and vice versa for digital solutions?
Thank you. I think thank you for the question. I think, as we know, I think the young population, they like to use digital, digitalization as well, Yet, but you see that's why I think maybe is some part of private sector they move ahead, from the government, because you see, I think government they set up only one framework, is one policy, they cover the whole thing in Cambodia. But you see, some relevant ministry they cannot apply digitalization in their house. You see that's why a bit different, because I think and also you see young generation they import the technology from the foreign company as well, they cooperation with the foreign company, that's why there's some part of digitalization they moving ahead, because government they really concerned about the cybercrime and control data. That's why until now I think government they very strict and then very careful about the control the data and cybercrime, because they cannot control everything in their house, But I heard from the minister, they very commit, very commitment, to reduce infrastructure and the monopoly infrastructure. Also, they try to reduce internet cost as well. You know, they very commit. You know, maybe the next several years they promise. I think the internet infrastructure maybe the cost of the use, and also they try to import. You know, I think the concrete digitalization company from overseas to challenge to comparison with the local monopoly company in Cambodia as well. And then what they commit, you know, I think they reduce the internet fee in Cambodia as well. You know, that's why I can say, you know, the PPP framework between government and private sector it's not matching right now. See, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Monivan. Is there any question from our so our panelists want to add? Sven, I see you raise your hand. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Suchita. Just the question from Mr. Bashner earlier reminded me that there's a lack of information really on the different project and program initiatives that are available to businesses, to chambers in Cambodia. Just to mention one, we have the MOC Go for ICAM project, a 3-year project where there is support to the Association of E-commerce. There is the creation of a regulatory sandbox for e-commerce. There is support to businesses to move online and even to get small grants to move online. This is the Go for ICAM project. There is the UNDP initiative to train and raise awareness on e-commerce, to move women-led businesses and businesses in the province to platforms and to get access to small grants. There is the Australia project on moving from offline to online in different sectors. There's the ASEAN project on improving the laws and regulations for e-commerce in Cambodia. And then there are a lot of different programs, Momentum, She Enterprise, Khmer Enterprise, I mentioned earlier. So I think there's also a need for associations like Dr. Monivan Association, your association, Suchita, and AVI, of course, to popularize this information, to make it available to the people who need, because otherwise we are going to come to webinars, all of us, and we're going to hear the same story. Oh, I don't get support. Or where can I get support? Or the support is there. The support is there in Cambodia. It can be financial. It can be human resource. It can be technical. It can be through your association, Dr. Monivan, to get the actor together so that you have a stronger voice, a strong lobbying voice vis-a-vis the government. We look at what happened with the rice sector. There were a lot of different associations, federations. They all came together under the umbrella of Cambodia Rice Federation, and they are able to negotiate with the government. They are able to negotiate with exporters and importers in other markets. So this is what we need in Cambodia. Of course, e-commerce is very nascent, but we are building the ecosystem. Initiative like this webinar, initiative like the e-business association, they're going in the right direction, but we have to make sure that everybody is aware of the opportunities that there are in Cambodia. Thank you, Suchita.
Yes, Annie, I see you raise your hand. So any inputs? Yeah, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to expand the opportunities that are there beyond Cambodia as well, because it's really a flat world. And Microsoft, for example, has got, say, the Women in AI program now to skill and certify women in AI and nurture them from there. Another one is if you search for, so the LinkedIn platform has tons of digital learning modules out there, which is not just tech, but also the soft skills. And this year, early on, around June, we announced 25 million skilling in across the world. And so a lot of learning and certification has been made free. All of Microsoft Learn is actually free. So you can go in there and say, look for who you are. You want to be, you're a beginner, or you want to be an app developer or a machine learning engineer, or just a business user. And it will show you a path of what is it that you want to learn. And these are bite-sized learning. I mean, every day you can do like 15 minutes or 30 minutes of learning, and in the course of a month or two, you would have actually gotten a certification on something. So so a lot of the opportunities are what was not accessible earlier is now available to everyone in Cambodia. So so my call is to, you know, look for these. It's a matter of just searching on internet and then go utilize it.
Yes, thank you, Annie. Is there any questions from our participants? So you can raise your hand and then you can ask the question directly to our panelists if you want. Any questions?
Excuse me, Sujita, can I add more?
Okay,
points?
yes, please, Bong.
With regard to the cross-border logistics that you asked earlier, because I think this is very critical, because when we talk about logistics, it's not only domestic, you know, logistics, but I think cross-border become even more important and also complex. We have national single window, ASEAN national single window. There's a bit of institutional complexity when it comes to ASICUDA, because Dr. Manivan mentioned about ASICUDA. It's with the support from Japan, China, and national single window. It's quite a different platform, a bit different platform, in order to harmonize the cross-border trade among the ASEAN member states. So I think when it comes to the national single window, the digitalization process, I think a bit slow in Cambodia. Because first there's a lack of coordination among the different agencies, because when we want to export, let's say, agricultural products, you need to get permission from different government agencies, right? So that is a time consuming, you know. Health product, I mean, those related to health check, you need to go through the Ministry of Health to get all this clearance. Agriculture, of course, you need to pass the Ministry of Agriculture, not only the custom. So how to integrate all these government red tapes, right? Those kind of paperwork into a one paperwork, you know, like and do it online. That I think we need to speed up that digitalization process of integrated government agencies in order to facilitate cross-border logistics transports. So that is something I want to stress. And coming back to Annie, with regard to the education and capacity building online content, now it's a problem of a language. The online contents available are all in English, and not all Cambodian SME in particular could understand English language. So I think perhaps we need to have a more investment. I think the state need to invest in translating those English content into the local language. Right? I think Ministry of Commerce need to do it because, you know, this kind of e-commerce digital transformation is very essential for the development of Cambodia. So the government need to spend money, invest money in translating those English content into the Khmer content. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wanrat. We have two more questions. So another one from Hu Yunings. I don't know she or he, but the question is, what are the type of digital solutions that Cambodia see more potential or relevant in? So example like payment gateway or e-wallets. So any panelists want to answer these questions, please? So the question is about digital solutions that Cambodia have more potential, for example, payment gateway or e-wallets. Sven or Dr. Nivan, you have any idea about these questions?
Sven, go ahead, yeah.
Well, I would say, based on what we've just heard, I think skills, digital skills, is where I see a lot of potential in Cambodia. In terms of payments, payment gateway, fintech, it's really well developed. So if we have more investors, they will face a lot of competition. But in terms of digital skills, from entrepreneurships to digital marketing to payments application developments, the sky is the limit. And Annie just mentioned that it's not only Cambodian, it's out there. We can get access and translate those into Cambodia. So I would say helping Cambodians to move online, to learn how to use digital technology, it is for me where to invest. And I think some of my colleagues mentioned health and education. Application in those two sectors as well are very important for Cambodia.
Just to add to that, if you are looking at within e-commerce itself, then probably some of the evolving areas is around, say, conversion rate optimization. So if you are collecting data and leveraging algorithms to derive insights from the data, I think that's where within e-commerce a lot more focus should be paid to, and that could lead to conversion rate optimization or maybe consumer experience, marketplaces, and improved customer experience, and things like that. So deriving more insights to either improve customer experience or reduce cost. Either of those would actually be areas to focus on within e-commerce itself.
Okay, I share something, involved with the payment gateway, I think also, for me, I think maybe we should educate more the customer. Very important thing, I think we know Cambodia, I think we can say about education, I think it's still limited, And also, I think maybe involved with the bank system as well, I think should be do not restriction, like that, because you see, I think maybe just several thousand they use credit card in Cambodia, besides, I think right now, I think the e-banking like TIDA or AVI Bank, I think maybe is also workable, but for me, I think only small number they can buy, they use a platform e-banking, EBA, and also TIDA, but if we use big number, I think maybe still restrict from the bank as well. I think maybe government should be thinking about it, how to release, I think the release the restriction from the bank about the debit card, also credit card, because I heard, only several thousand Cambodian people, they can use credit cards, right, But the important thing, I think the user, I think subscriber, they need to develop more, I think, convenient system for them to easy to access, to use, I think the payment gateway, the important thing, because we know, I think maybe we still have the first generation in house right now. I think maybe it is not workable about the payment gateway, Mostly they like to use COD, yeah. Thank you. Anything else?
From our participants, who is the missions focally carrying the digital acceleration program within Cambodia, such as technology side or commerce, because it's still confusions for them. So Sven, you have any ideas about these questions?
Well, I think the question is actually, there's multiple answers. If you talk about the infrastructure, we all agree that NPTC is leading that part. If you talk about the SME, I think NPTC and NISTI are working on this. If you talk about the digital trade aspect, it's more commerce. I think from the question, if it's only about technology, so it would be, for me, the response would be NPTC and also Ministry of Interior in terms of usage of the technology and making sure that it is stay within the laws. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I think I would like to share some information about digital acceleration. Actually, there are different players right now set up different digital acceleration, like Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce also have a eCam project, and there are some elements of capacity building program. Ministry of Port and Communication, they also have NIPTEC Digital Innovation Center. And I also know that Ministry of Finance and Economy, they also have Daecho Center. They also have Khmer Enterprise. So the different ministry, they have different acceleration program to promote digital economy in our own country, and also private sector, they have their own accelerate program like Impact Hub, investment, like momentum, like AVI think tank. They also promoting digital program. So there are many players that contribute to speed up the digital acceleration program in Cambodia. This is what I can share. Is there any questions from our participants? Okay, yes, Bong Wanrat. Go ahead.
Our digital economy policy will be released sometime this year. It has been delayed because of the COVID-19. I think that policy would help us to see a better and bigger picture of digital transformation and acceleration in Cambodia, especially to integrate this kind of inter-agency or coordinate inter-government inter-agencies, because it's a bit confusing, to be frank, at this stage, which ministry in charge of what, and there are some overlapping areas, to be honest, and they need to, reduce this kind of overlap kind of areas of government intervention in digital acceleration. And what I want to see in Cambodia is university in industry partnership in digital acceleration and transformation. We don't see much university focusing on this kind of university industry partnership, except one university in Cambodia, Kirirum Institute of Technology. I'm not sure whether you're aware of it, but that is the only model of a university industry partnership in digital transformation and acceleration. So, and they have quite a number of successful tech startups by the student there, Kirirum Institute of Technology. So perhaps this is another actor is the university. I wish to see more university in Cambodia invest more resources in research in digital transformation and acceleration. Thank you. I think Suchita is offline now.
You can be a moderator.
So I may need to resume her role as a moderator. So I think we still have about 10 minutes to go. Perhaps would like to seek your advice, policy recommendation for the Cambodian government and the private sector also, because digital transformation is two-level playing game. The government and the private sector. I think they need to work together in partnership, otherwise it cannot move things forward. So perhaps we still have a last 10 minutes to go. I would like to seek perhaps policy recommendation or advice from Ms. Annie especially for the Cambodian government and private sector in Cambodia.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Wannarit. I'll touch upon a few things that I've seen work well elsewhere, and I'm sure it will work well for Cambodia as well. So fundamentally, the talent pool. So that's the first piece. We have spoken ad nauseum about it. So I think that's one pillar to be focused on. And within that, students, as you brought up, is a major chunk, because that's the future. And if it's easier to skill them up and help them actually innovate on that. The second is a women talent pool, and this cuts back to the cultural transformation as well, because if you look at the numbers now, I was just looking up for Cambodia, and the labor participation can improve, but the wage gap is huge, and there seems to be a lot of socioeconomic friction there. So probably look at the women talent pool, because the ripple effect of women coming into the labor force and participating is huge for a society itself. So students, women as a focus area in the talent pool itself are two things. The second is, I've seen this work very nicely in Thailand, for example, where the government actually works in helping create an ecosystem of partners who are deep on technology, because it's not easy for every company to become deep on technology very quickly. But if there are solutions made for Cambodia by Cambodia partners, and government supports them with that sandboxed environment where this ideation and innovation can happen very quickly, funding, sandbox, all of that brought together, and help them trial and test it into, so it could be e-commerce, logistics, banking, healthcare, all of those different verticals, but vertical specific solutions that and at the core is a public-private partnership. So government creates that small ecosystem and invites people to come build on it, and then gives them a channel to others to adopt that. That's, I think, a good practical way to kind of quickly build up competency on some of those things. And the third one for me is innovation. So student startups, women startups. The startup ecosystem has to thrive and grow for Cambodia to leap into that industry 5.0, if you will. So how can you enable that startups? And when you talk about public-private partnerships in that space, all the major companies like Microsoft have got these programs and stuff. So a part that the government can also place into identify who are these players who can come in and support you in this journey. Indonesia has done I've seen Indonesia do a great job of that. I've seen that in Malaysia. So it's essential for the economy to grow that you take all that's available out there, get them to maybe set up stuff in Cambodia and things like that, that can all be done at the government level. But yeah, those are, that's the innovation ecosystem probably that can be driven as well. So yeah, that's my 3 cents.
Thank you, Anif. Sorry, a moment ago, it's because the internet connection at my side is very poor, so I was cut off. So I would like to invite Dr. Mnivan to give your recommendation, policy recommendation. So what are they, if you want to provide to relevant stakeholder in our own country?
Thank you, Sochita, again. I think I think you create the program, the workshop the afternoon, and saying to see, Dr. Chen Wandat, also saying to see Sven, and also any as well, I think any participant to join our workshop the afternoon, For my last recommendation, I'm agree with Dr. Chen Wandat. I think maybe everything should start from education system, but I can share in a little bit that's why, what my concern, my last recommendation, I have my own school management system, I provide very full function to the school, private school and also state school in Cambodia. But you see, I think around 20-30% is work, but mostly I think the state school or the public school, they cannot accept, because I say, each equipment, also I think the human digital also, I think maybe, I think the previous teacher, I think the old generation teacher, they cannot accept, I think, the new system, also I think the new platform, for the young generation, they like, I think school management system, they very happy to use, and then they appreciate for the system, but for some teacher, they cannot accept, this is our concern, but the solution, I think maybe we should start, we cannot stop like that. I think we should find a good solution and provide incentive for those schools, and for those people as well, to encourage them, to promote them, to develop them, to accept the digital, in this generation. And also, I think we talk about ecosystem. I think maybe, or in the panel, I think maybe everyone raised up about ecosystem in Cambodia. I think as you know, as we are the CA, you know, we try to integrate, you know, after pandemic is recovered, you know, I think CA will we try to facilitate and try to integrate among our private sectors first, you know, what I concern right now, you know, I think I raised up today, you know, about the high commitment from the minister from UPTC, you know, they very committed, you know, I think they will transform technology to transform Cambodia to be e-government very soon, you know. But what I concern is the private sector. It's not easy for us to integrate them in one platform, you know. Yeah, that's why I hope, you know, as I'm president of CEA, you know, maybe Dr. Chen Van Au, maybe people over here, I think Swear also stay in Cambodia, how we can support them, how we integrate them in ecosystem in one platform. Because I think maybe right now, private sector, you have to know about your application to apply digitalization in your house, you know, because government tries to support a lot of provide incentive to digitalization company, and then also tech startup company as well, you know. I think we must be accept, you know, and then must be support our business, also support our Cambodia government, also support our government as well, you know. But what we need to do, I think we must, you know, I think set up the new ecosystem, you know, PPP framework in the one structure, in one platform, and then we can moving forward very soon. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mnivan, because of the time, and now our discussion, our webinar come to the end, and I would like to say thank you to Annie, to Dr. Mnivan, Dr. Ching Vanrat, and also Sven already left the room because he have another commitment. I'm so thankful for your valuable time to share your own knowledge and experience, and of course, based on our discussion, there are a few recommendations that we can work on. One is about building ecosystem, building our educational system in terms of digitalization, and of course the public-private partnership. So we can see the future of our e-commerce and logistics in Cambodia. And thank you again for your time, and goodbye. Thanks for participants and also our Facebook Live friends that follow us from the beginning to till the end. Yes.